two neighbors who live in mansions on the ocean are now battling in court, and the fight includes the theme song from the 1960s sitcom Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island was one of the most loved shows on TV, full of laughter, adventure, and the strange little island that felt like a perfect escape. But behind the smiles and silly moments, a shocking truth lurked. The show was facing problems that most viewers never knew. Creative fights, tricky ratings, and hidden pressures slowly pushed it toward cancellation. Why did such a fun and famous show end so suddenly? Could the cast and crew have done something to save it? Stay with us as we uncover the real story behind why Gilligan's Island got cancelled. The show that captured hearts. Gilligan's Island is one of the most famous American television shows of all time. It first aired in 1964 and was created by Sherwood Schwartz. The show followed the lives of 7 people who became stranded on an uncharted island after a storm sank their boat, the SS Minnow.
It was a painstaking process to restore the SS Minnow to its former glory.
The 7 characters included Gilligan, the clumsy first mate, the skipper, the boat's captain, Thurston Howell, the third, and his wife, Lovey, Ginger, the glamorous movie star, Mary Ann, the sweet farm girl, and the professor, who always tried to solve problems using science. Each character had a unique personality, and together they created endless comedy on the island. The main idea of the show was simple. It combined humor, adventure, and the problem-solving efforts of the castaways. Every episode had the same basic theme. The group tried to survive on the island while also finding ways to escape. Despite the repetitive setup, audiences loved the chemistry between the characters and the funny situations they got into. The show was light, simple, and easy for families to enjoy. Even though the show was very popular with viewers, critics did not always like it. Some thought the comedy was too simple or silly. Despite this, it became a cultural phenomenon. Fans enjoyed the absurdity of the situations and the interactions between the characters. The show's influence extended beyond television. There were comic books, board games, lunchboxes, and other merchandise based on Gilligan's Island. Ratings were good at the start, but the show faced challenges from the very beginning. Television in the 1960s was highly competitive. Shows had to perform well in Nielsen ratings to survive. While Gilligan's Island attracted a loyal audience, the network was concerned about how well it competed against other programs in its time slot. The balance between critical reception, fan love, and network expectations was delicate. One reason the show stood out was its combination of comedy and escapism. Audiences could forget about daily life and enjoy the fun adventures of 7 people trying to survive on an island. The setting allowed for endless creativity and plots. The ocean, tropical weather, and mysterious island features made every episode feel different, even if the overall structure was the same. However, behind the scenes, the production faced serious challenges. The tight shooting schedule, budget limits, and constant pressure to produce new episodes created stress for the cast and crew. Despite these difficulties, the team continued to make episodes that entertained millions of viewers. Gilligan's Island became a favorite for many families. Its appeal was simple but powerful. The show reminded viewers of friendship, problem-solving, and humor in everyday challenges. Its colorful characters and memorable settings left a lasting impression on pop culture. Even today, the show is recognized as a classic example of American television comedy. Millions loved it, but ratings told a different story.
Especially those who go boating at Gilligan's Island.
The weather started getting rough.
Could popularity alone save Gilligan's Island? Find out in the next chapter. The ratings roller coaster. Television shows live and fade by ratings. In the 1960s, Nielsen ratings were the main way networks measured a show's success. Gilligan's Island had a mixed performance in these ratings. Some seasons performed very well, while others struggled to compete against other programs airing at the same time. Even though many people loved the show, the numbers did not always reflect its popularity accurately. The show started on CBS and aired on Thursday nights. At first, it had a strong following. Families enjoyed watching it after dinner, and children especially loved the funny characters. Episodes had simple plots that were easy to follow, and the tropical island setting made viewers curious about what would happen next. These factors helped the show gain attention. Despite this, the show faced tough competition. Other popular programs in the same time slot attracted viewers who might have otherwise watched Gilligan's Island. Even a loyal audience was not always enough to keep the ratings high. Nielsen ratings only measured a sample of households, which meant that the actual number of fans might have been higher than the reported numbers. Another factor was the audience demographic. Gilligan's Island appealed mostly to families and younger viewers. Adults without children sometimes did not watch the show regularly. Networks preferred shows that appealed to a broader audience, including higher-income households. This meant that even if the show was entertaining and popular with certain groups, it might not meet the network's expectations for advertising revenue. The show's ratings also fluctuated during its three-season run. Some episodes were more successful because of interesting plots or guest stars. Other episodes underperformed, and this affected how the network viewed the show's overall performance. Networks often looked for consistency rather than occasional spikes in viewership. Even when ratings were solid, the network considered production costs, filming on location for some scenes, creating sets that looked like a tropical island, and paying the cast added up. The network had to weigh whether the profits from advertising matched the costs of producing the show. In some cases, it did not, which made the decision to cancel easier. Critics also influenced ratings indirectly. Negative reviews could discourage new viewers from tuning in. Some critics called the show too silly or repetitive, even though viewers found it entertaining. This created tension between what the audience enjoyed and what the network thought would attract more viewers. Ratings were only the beginning. Behind the smiles and laughter, the cast and crew were facing storms of their own. So, what really happened behind the camera? Let's find out. Behind the camera, creative conflicts and budget battles. Making a television show is never easy, and Gilligan's Island was no exception.
Our next guest is the last surviving cast member of the iconic TV series Gilligan's Island.
Behind the laughter and sunny scenes, the production faced constant challenges. One of the main problems was creative disagreements. Sherwood Schwartz, the show's creator, had clear ideas about the show's direction, but producers, network executives, and writers sometimes disagreed. Decisions about scripts, storylines, and even character roles often caused tension. These disagreements slowed down production and created stress for everyone involved. Budget problems also affected the show. Even though the series looked like a tropical paradise, most of the sets were built in a studio in California. Creating an island that felt real required money for props, decorations, costumes, and special effects. The network gave the production a limited budget, which forced the team to work with fewer resources than they wanted. Sometimes props broke, or costumes were reused, which caused frustration on set. The cast also experienced pressure. They worked long hours under the hot studio lights, performing the same scenes multiple times. Gilligan's character, played by Bob Denver, often had physical comedy scenes that required precise timing. The skipper, played by Alan Hale Jr., had to react to these situations naturally. These performances were tiring and added to the challenges of production. Cast salaries were another source of tension. Some actors wanted higher pay as the show became popular, but budgets were tight. Negotiations caused delays in shooting, and in some cases, conflicts arose between cast members. Even small disagreements could grow larger due to the stress of long working hours and the pressure to deliver episodes on time. Network interference also played a role.
Skipper, I don't think I'm gonna be able to support this wife.
CBS executives sometimes wanted changes to the scripts or characters to attract more viewers. They were especially concerned about appealing to certain demographics that were more profitable for advertisers. These demands could conflict with the creative vision of the show's team, making it difficult to produce episodes as originally intended. Even minor production mistakes caused problems. Scenes sometimes had to be reshot because props fell, sets collapsed, or actors made mistakes. These errors were costly and added stress to an already tight schedule. Despite these challenges, the cast and crew worked hard to make each episode entertaining. Their dedication helped the show succeed even under difficult conditions. The combination of creative conflicts, budget limitations, and network demands made producing Gilligan's Island a constant challenge. On the surface, the show looked fun and carefree, but behind the camera, the cast and crew faced serious problems. The pressures of production added to the difficulties caused by fluctuating ratings and audience expectations. The cameras kept rolling, but the cast was trapped in more than just comedy. But how did fame become a trap to these stars? The curse of typecasting. When fame becomes a trap. Typecasting is when an actor becomes so identified with one role that it affects the rest of their career. For the cast of Gilligan's Island, this was a major problem. Audiences loved them as their characters, but casting directors often only considered them for similar roles. This limited opportunities and made it hard for the actors to grow in their careers. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, was especially affected. His clumsy, lovable persona became so well known that many producers could not imagine him in other roles. Alan?
Why not? We could use torches. Yeah, and we can rehearse in the clearing where he can't hear us.
Alan Hale Jr., the skipper, also faced similar challenges. Even minor cast members, like Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, and Tina Louise, who played Ginger, found it difficult to escape their on-screen images. This created frustration for the actors and tension behind the scenes. Typecasting also influenced the show's perception. Critics sometimes dismissed the program as simple or childish because the actors were associated with very specific traits. Even when episodes were creative, the public and press often focused on the characters' repeated behaviors rather than the quality of the writing or performances. The actors' personal ambitions were also affected. Some wanted to pursue theater, movies, or other television roles, but opportunities were limited. For women on the show, typecasting was even more restrictive. Tina Louise's glamorous image made it difficult for her to play ordinary roles, while Dawn Wells' wholesome persona led to similar limitations. Fame brought attention, but it was a double-edged sword. While the actors enjoyed recognition and fan support, the constant association with their island characters prevented career growth. Social events, interviews, and public appearances often emphasized their roles on Gilligan's Island, rather than their personal talents or other abilities. Typecasting also had financial consequences. Because the actors were limited in their career options, some struggled to find high-paying roles after the show ended. This added pressure on the cast to continue working on projects connected to Gilligan's Island, such as spin-offs, guest appearances, or reunion specials. Despite these challenges, the cast remained professional and committed to their roles. Their performances helped the show succeed and contributed to its lasting popularity. The cast was stuck on the island, and the network had its own hidden agenda. Network politics, CBS versus ABC, and the ratings wars. Television is not only about actors and scripts, it is also about networks and money. For Gilligan's Island, network politics played a major role in its eventual cancellation. The show aired on CBS during its 3-season run. While it had a loyal audience, the network executives were constantly thinking about profits, advertising, and competition. Ratings were important, but networks also focused on demographics, sponsors, and rival programs. CBS had other popular shows airing at the same time, and executives needed to make sure the network's overall lineup performed well. They were under pressure from advertisers who wanted programs that attracted viewers with more disposable income. Even though families loved Gilligan's Island, advertisers often preferred shows aimed at adults with higher incomes. This created tension between audience enjoyment and financial strategy. Competition was fierce. ABC and NBC were also airing programs designed to attract similar audiences. When Gilligan's Island aired, other networks had shows that sometimes performed better in Nielsen ratings. The network executives monitored these numbers closely, comparing Gilligan's Island to rivals. Even small dips in ratings could make executives nervous about the show's long-term viability. Time slot changes also caused problems. CBS sometimes moved the show to different nights or times to try to improve performance. These shifts confused viewers and affected consistency. Loyal fans might miss an episode simply because it aired at a new time, which could lower ratings further. The network hoped these changes would increase viewership, but they often had the opposite effect. Sponsors also influenced decisions. In the 1960s, television advertising was crucial for revenue. Sponsors wanted programs that aligned with their brand image and reached target audiences effectively. CBS needed to ensure that Gilligan's Island satisfied these sponsors. If the show was popular but not attracting the right demographic, executives might consider replacing it with a program that could deliver better results for advertisers. Network executives also evaluated the production costs against the show's profitability. Even if ratings were decent, expensive production elements could make the show less attractive financially. Special effects, sets, and cast salaries added up quickly. CBS had to weigh whether the revenue from advertising justified these costs. The network's decision-making focused on business priorities rather than artistic success. Behind the scenes, there were also disagreements about creative control. CBS sometimes requested changes to characters, storylines, or scripts to appeal to different audiences. These requests caused tension with Sherwood Schwartz and the writers. Maintaining a balance between creative vision and network demands was challenging, and it added stress to an already pressured production. Network politics were complicated, and multiple factors combined to influence the fate of Gilligan's Island. Ratings alone could not save it. Even a beloved show with millions of fans was vulnerable if it did not meet the network's financial goals or strategic plans. Executives had the final say, and their priorities were often based on numbers, sponsorships, and market positioning rather than audience enjoyment. Ultimately, network politics created invisible barriers for the show. Decisions made in boardrooms far from the sunny island sets shaped the future of the castaways. Even when everything seemed perfect on screen, the network held the power to cancel a program and send it into syndication. So, could these changes have also played a role in the show's cancellation? Ratings and boardroom battles were only part of the story. When the world outside the island changed, could Gilligan's Island survive the tides, cultural shifts, and changing TV tastes? Television does not exist in isolation. It reflects society, trends, and cultural changes. In the mid to late 1960s, the United States was experiencing major social transformations. The counterculture movement, protests, and changes in music, fashion, and values were reshaping the entertainment landscape. Audiences began looking for shows that addressed real-life issues, social awareness, or more sophisticated humor. These shifts affected light-hearted comedies like Gilligan's Island. Escapist shows were still popular with children and families, but many adults sought programming that was more relevant to their lives. Shows like The Twilight Zone and The Andy Griffith Show tackled topics that appealed to different age groups and interests. In contrast, Gilligan's Island offered repetitive plots and a fantasy setting that sometimes seemed disconnected from current events. This created a gap between audience expectations and the network's offerings. The counterculture movement brought significant changes to television content. Young adults were becoming more influential in shaping trends. They preferred shows that reflected their experiences, opinions, and concerns. While Gilligan's Island remained entertaining, it did not engage with these emerging themes. Networks noticed these changes and started developing programs to capture younger, more socially conscious viewers. Advertising trends also shifted. Sponsors began targeting younger, more urban audiences with disposable income. A simple family comedy, while popular, was less appealing to these advertisers compared to shows that attracted more adult viewers. Even if the show remained fun and humorous, it became less profitable in the changing television economy. Cultural changes also affected critical reception. Critics increasingly favored shows with deeper themes, clever writing, or social relevance. Although audiences enjoyed the comedy, critics labeled it as childish or repetitive. Negative reviews, combined with shifting tastes, created an environment where the show seemed outdated, even if millions continued to watch. Another factor was the evolution of television technology and programming. Color TV was becoming more widespread, and viewers expected visually engaging content. While Gilligan's Island adapted to color filming in later seasons, other shows pushed boundaries with innovative sets, special effects, and cinematography. This raised audience expectations and made the show's simple production seem less impressive. Even pop culture trends outside television affected the show's perception. Music, fashion, and movies reflected the social changes of the time. Young audiences were increasingly drawn to rock bands, modern movies, and shows that captured the energy of the era. A light-hearted island sitcom struggled to compete with these new cultural forces. All of these factors combined to create a perfect storm. While the show had a devoted fan base, the cultural shift made networks question whether it could remain relevant. Ratings, network politics, creative tensions, and changing audience tastes all contributed to the decision to cancel Gilligan's Island. The world outside the island was changing fast. Could Gilligan's Island survive the storm of society itself? Or was cancellation inevitable? How Gilligan's Island became immortal. Even though Gilligan's Island ended after 3 seasons, its life did not stop with the final episode. One of the most important factors in the show's lasting fame was syndication. Syndication allowed networks across the United States to air reruns repeatedly. Shows that had only a few seasons could reach millions more viewers than during their original broadcasts. For Gilligan's Island, reruns began in the late 1960s and became a staple on local television stations. Children who were too young to watch the original series discovered it for the first time, and adults who had enjoyed it originally could relive the episodes they loved. Syndication helped create multi-generational fans. Families could watch the show together, and grandparents could share the adventures of Gilligan and the castaways with their grandchildren. Merchandise also played a big role in keeping the show alive. Board games, puzzles, comic books, and toys allowed fans to interact with the characters outside of the television screen. These products made the show a part of daily life, not just weekend or weekday viewing.
Now back to our program of cheery daytime tunes.
Sir, you don't suppose that...
Well, he said that the crate was clearly labeled.
The iconic characters, the skipper, Gilligan, Mary Ann, Ginger, the professor, and the Howells, became symbols that were easy to remember. Kids could imitate their favorite scenes, and families could act out the adventures on the island at home. This interaction deepened the attachment fans felt toward the show, turning it into more than just a television program. Another factor was fan conventions and community engagement. Beginning in the 1970s, fans started gathering to celebrate their love for the show. These conventions featured cast appearances, costume contests, and panel discussions about episodes, favorite moments, and behind-the-scenes stories. These events kept the spirit of the show alive and gave fans the chance to connect with each other. For many, the castaways became almost like friends or family members. Fan letters, newsletters, and later online communities expanded this culture, allowing people from all over the world to share their memories and excitement. Syndication also allowed the show to spread internationally. Many countries aired reruns of Gilligan's Island, sometimes years after the original cancellation. The simple, universal humor and the clear character archetypes made the show easy to understand for non-English-speaking audiences. The image of a small group of people stranded on a tropical island became a global symbol of fun, friendship, and adventure. In many ways, syndication transformed the show from a 3-season American program into an international cultural phenomenon. The show's presence in syndication also influenced modern television. Many contemporary sitcoms and family programs studied how Gilligan's Island maintained viewer interest despite limited episodes. The formula of having a small group of characters with distinct personalities placed in a confined setting with ongoing challenges became a blueprint for countless comedies. Writers and producers noticed that even with simple plots, humor, and well-developed characters could create a lasting audience connection. Perhaps the most remarkable part of the show's post-cancellation life was how it created a sense of nostalgia. As years passed, viewers who had watched the show as children fondly remembered the island, the minnow, and the various comic situations the castaways found themselves in. Nostalgia fueled rerun ratings, merchandise sales, and new fan engagement. Even decades later, references to the show appear in other media, from cartoons and sitcoms to pop culture jokes and parodies. This constant presence in popular culture ensured that Gilligan's Island remained relevant, even for generations that never watched the original episodes. In the end, syndication and fan culture proved that a television show does not need long seasons or critical acclaim to leave a lasting mark. The love of fans, repeated viewings, and the chance to interact with the characters outside of the screen created a legacy stronger than cancellation could ever destroy. Gilligan's Island became more than a show. It became a cultural touchstone, a symbol of simple comedy, enduring friendships, and the joy of escapist television. The show may have left the airwaves, but fans kept it alive. How did a program canceled in its prime grow stronger with every rerun? The legacy of cancellation. Why we still talk about Gilligan's Island. The cancellation of Gilligan's Island shocked many fans. Despite its popularity with families and children, the show ended after 3 seasons in 1967. On the surface, it seemed unfair for such a beloved show to disappear from television so quickly. However, the decision was influenced by a combination of factors, including ratings fluctuations, network politics, creative conflicts, budget concerns, typecasting of the cast, and changing cultural tastes. Understanding the show's cancellation requires looking at what happened after the final episode aired and how the series managed to leave a lasting mark on television and popular culture. After the cancellation, the cast members faced mixed feelings. They were proud of their work, knowing they had created a show that millions of people loved, but they were also frustrated by the challenges they faced during production and the limitations typecasting had placed on their careers. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, remained closely associated with his character. Even decades later, audiences still recognized him primarily as the clumsy first mate. Alan Hale Jr., the skipper, experienced the same phenomenon, as did Tina Louise, Dawn Wells, and the other cast members. The fame brought by Gilligan's Island was both a blessing and a challenge. It opened doors to certain opportunities, such as guest appearances, reunion shows, and commercials, but it also limited the roles the actors could take in other television programs or films. Despite these challenges, the cancellation did not mean the end of Gilligan's Island. The show found a second life through reruns. Syndication allowed the episodes to be shown on different networks at various times of the day. This was especially effective in the 1970s and 80s, when cable television expanded. and families could watch older programs more easily. Reruns introduced the show to new audiences, including children who were too young to watch the original episodes. This created a multi-generational fan base that helped maintain the show's popularity long after it left the air. The merchandise and pop culture references surrounding Gilligan's Island also contributed to its enduring legacy. Board games, lunchboxes, comic books, and toys kept the characters in the public eye. Even decades after the show ended, the names of the castaways, the famous skipper's cap, and the minnow itself remained iconic. The characters became archetypes in American pop culture. Gilligan represented the lovable underdog. The skipper symbolized authority and patience. Ginger was the glamorous star, and Mary Ann embodied wholesomeness and kindness. These characters were easy to remember and relate to, which helped the show remain relevant long after its cancellation. The network's decision to cancel the show was initially controversial among fans. Letters poured in from viewers expressing disappointment and frustration. Many could not understand why a show they loved so much would be removed from the air. Over time, however, this controversy contributed to the show's mystique. Fans began to appreciate the program not only for its humor and storylines, but also as a symbol of a unique period in television history. The show became a case study for how network decisions, ratings pressures, and cultural shifts can affect even the most popular programs. Another aspect of the show's legacy is its influence on later television comedies. The premise of Gilligan's Island, a group of characters in a confined, unusual setting trying to solve problems while dealing with each other's personalities, has been used in countless sitcoms. The ensemble cast model, with each character representing a specific personality type, became a standard formula for many comedies that followed.
Mum what?
Mum's the word.
About what?
If I told you, it wouldn't be mum.
I told you to keep it mum.
The professor?
Writers and producers studied the show's successes and failures to understand how character dynamics, humor, and conflict could drive a series. Despite its cancellation, Gilligan's Island has inspired reunion specials, made for television movies, and even stage adaptations.
Do you like carrots?
Oh, like them. I love them. Oh, Gilligan, they're awfully good for you. Where the more you eat, the better your eyesight.
These projects allowed fans to revisit the characters and the island in new ways. The cast members occasionally reunited for interviews and public appearances, where they shared behind-the-scenes stories, production challenges, and personal reflections on the show. These reunions reinforced the show's cultural impact and reminded audiences why it had remained a favorite for so many years. Critics and television historians have since reassessed the show. While initially dismissed by some as silly or childish, it is now recognized for its clever character work, comedic timing, and cultural significance. The show captured the imagination of viewers during a turbulent period in American history. Its lighthearted escapism provided relief from social and political tensions, which made it valuable beyond mere entertainment. The combination of humor, adventure, and teamwork made Gilligan's Island a model of successful sitcom formula. The enduring popularity of the show has also fueled speculation and fan theories. From imagining what would have happened if the castaways had escaped the island to discussions about hidden messages in episodes, the show continues to generate conversation. Its influence on pop culture, comedy, and television production remains evident. Even people who have never watched the original series often recognize characters, images, or references associated with the show. Ultimately, the cancellation of Gilligan's Island was not the end of its story. The challenges of ratings, networks, cultural changes, and production issues were temporary, but the affection audiences felt for the show has endured. Its legacy shows that television programs can continue to impact culture, shape entertainment trends, and remain beloved even decades after they are off the air. Gilligan's Island may have left the screens, but the island, the characters, and the laughs it created have never truly gone away. Even though Gilligan's Island was canceled after 3 seasons, its story never ended. The castaways lived on in reruns, fan communities, and popular culture. Syndication introduced new generations to the island, while merchandise and conventions kept the show alive. The challenges behind the scenes, ratings struggles, and network decisions could not erase the laughter it created. Today, the show remains a symbol of friendship, humor, and adventure. Gilligan, the skipper, Marianne, Ginger, the professor, and the Howells are forever remembered. The island may have been fictional, but its legacy is real and unforgettable. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.